Wow. Rarely do I get applause, so thank you, even if it means that I'm almost done here. I do want to, first of all, thank the members for a passionate debate on the subject, and I'm delighted that the bill has finally come to the floor for consideration. I do want to thank the Speaker, all my colleagues. I want to thank the Chair of the Tourism Committee, not only for her leadership, but for continuing to push me to make this a better bill. There were a couple of things that were stated today that I do think bear some clarification, because I frankly think on the facts there may have been some things said erroneously. First of all, as it relates to studies about head trauma and comparisons between boxing and mixed martial arts, I just note January of 2015, the Cleveland Clinic, well-respected research institution, published a study, Repeated Head Trauma, as it relates to professional fighters. In it, it notes that there is a significant increase in brain impairment on behalf of boxers versus mixed martial artists. And it says, and I'll read from the study, the finding that boxers had more impairment than MMA fighters could be due to several factors, and I quote, perhaps the most obvious explanation is that boxers get hit in the head more. In addition to trying to concuss, i.e. knock out their opponent, MMA fighters can utilize other combat skills such as wrestling and jiu-jitsu to win their match by submission without causing a concussion. In a review of 60 consecutive fights within the 125 to 145-pound weight class, utilizing reports from professional services that count the number of punches in professional fights, boxers received on average 175 total punches per fight versus 58 for MMA fighters. However, other differences between the two combat disciplines could influence the findings. And this is a study of 225 fighters, 131 of which were mixed martial artists, 93 were boxers. So as it relates to brain trauma, and this is published in 2015 by the Cleveland Clinic, it seems that that is relatively conclusive about the differences between those two sports, and boxing has long been regulated in the state of New York. Others talked about violence, and there is no discounting the fact that this is a violent sport, as is boxing, as is football. The notion that violence doesn't solve problems implies that this is a fight between people who are angry with one another. These are trained professionals who have discipline, both mental and physical. And I do note, and I will disclose, I'm a big football fan. I've watched football since the time I was a little boy, played it in the sandlot. The notion, however, that a recognized professional sport like football, where, just imagine, you're a quarterback in the pocket, those of you who are football fans. There are 11 people, but let's just say the defensive line is in pursuit from your blind side. The fact that you have a ball and are trying to advance it past a goal line, apparently in some minds, is inherently better, even though a quarterback could be pursued from distances of 10 or 15 yards at high speeds by very big people wearing pads. I would submit that that is far more violent to that quarterback than two opponents standing in front of one another, no blindside, not multiple opponents, just one, is perhaps less violent in mixed martial arts than it is in football. But I won't dispute it, and I certainly don't mean to impugn the sport of football, but clearly there is a lot of research that needs to be done on a whole host of sports about the impact on brain trauma. This is, and this statute does have, a study commissioned under the law by the Department of Health, the State Athletic Commission, and others relative to suggestions on how to deal with the impact in martial arts and boxing and other combatant sports on the long-term implications. I do also want to make a couple of other points. I thought Mr. Crespo did a very good job of making the point relative to dollars being spent to lobby a whole host of issues, whether it is issues relating to educational policy, reproductive rights, Women's Equality Act, marriage equality. People spend money to advance their interest in terms of public edification, the edification of members. To single out this particular public policy question seems to me, pardon me, but hitting below the belt. The other things that have been mentioned, I think I'll leave to people to talk about, but Section 1018 deals with conflicts by fighters and promoters. It is strict. It is, I would maintain, as strict as any that relates to conflicts of interest. This is, and I wouldn't mean to in any way question conclusions reached here, but this is the first time in New York State that professional mixed martial arts will be regulated at the amateur level, and it is spelled out very clearly in the bill. I won't bore you by reading sections of it. Someone mentioned the wonders of the Internet. I did check the Federal Standards Act that one of the members made reference to. Actually is for exploitation in contracts, but it does specify and will continue standards in boxing. I just note that the standards in boxing now in New York will be exactly the same as the standard in mixed martial arts by virtue of the bill before the House. So those standards will be met and will continue to be met. Finally, I'd say, just in closing, people should note that anything you can do in mixed martial arts under the bill, you can already do in single discipline martial arts or the other combatant sports that are already authorized in New York, whether it's jiu-jitsu, karate, taekwondo, wrestling, judo, boxing, etc. This simply merges those various single disciplines into a single sport. So there's nothing inherently in MMA that you can't already do under the professional law that exists in New York. This sport has evolved. So has this bill. And again, I want to thank the members for the increased protections for fighters, the insurance in this law. For instance, not only mixed martial artists, but boxers will now not only have a regulation of health insurance or accidental insurance. Currently, the limit is $7,500 for boxers. That will be raised by several fold to $50,000 for not only mixed martial artists, but boxers as well. I'd finally say this, that there is discipline in any professional sport. I don't care what sport it is. You rise.
Why do you rise?
If the gentleman will yield for a question or a comment regarding...
well, I was prepared to close, but if it's a quick question,
I just wanted to, since I was the one that mentioned boxing versus mixed martial arts, I just wanted to note, I understand you have a study you're citing. I was citing a different one, and it was from the American Journal of Sports Medicine, and I am happy to share it, and I don't want to debate which sport is more violent, but clearly there are different studies by different journals of medicine.
Ms. Fahey, you rise to ask a question, not to make a statement.
Okay, then I will leave the question at that, but I wanted to compare the different studies. Just we'll make note of that and leave it go. Thank you.
But thank you, and I'm happy to submit the Cleveland Clinic study as well. But let me just conclude this way, that any professional sport requires a high degree of discipline, training that is both mental and physical. This is, I think, the time has come to regulate this sport at the professional amateur level. New York is the only place. I don't consider that a badge of honor. I consider that what we are doing is dispensing our responsibilities to make sure that this environment is regulated, that people who participate at the professional and amateur level have the highest standards, have the highest requirements, and I'm confident that if this bill passes and is signed by the governor, that that's what we'll have in New York. So thank you for everyone for their participation and their consideration of the bill.
Thank you, sir. Read the last section.
This act shall take effect on the 120th day.
The clerk will record the vote. Mr. Benedetto, to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To explain my vote, I suspect I'm not alone with my feelings on this particular bill. I'm extremely uneasy. I will be voting for it, however. It is a terrible, nasty, violent sport, but it is everywhere else. At least now we will begin to regulate this sport. Much has been said today, and rightly so, about concern about brain damage, brain trauma, and what's that doing to the athletes. Well, yes, well said, but at least the athletes, at least those who are participating in this sport, over the age of 18, over the age of reason, that they can make a fair determination of where they want to go. I am fascinated that we have done nothing here to protect our youngest kids, from playing very violent sports, such as football, from the age of 5 all the way to 14. For those who might be interested in that area, I point you to A, 4448, preventing kids from playing tackle football under the age of 14 years of age. Let's start with protecting those kids from the brain trauma that they may be receiving. Mr. Speaker, thank you for your time. I'll be voting in the affirmative.
Mr. Benedetto in the affirmative. Ms. Peoples-Stokes to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a young child growing up in a household where everybody loved sports, and I had a brother older and a brother younger, my mother loved it, my father loved it, so when we got out of church on Sundays, while we watched dinner, we watched football. I learned to love the game. And not only did I learn to love the game, I actually like all sports. I now serve on the Western New York Golden Gloves Board of Directors for the young people who are being properly trained in the game of boxing. And most recently, our school district in Buffalo started a boxing initiative within the school system. And much like Mr. Crespo talked about earlier, sometimes people who come from communities where there is a lot of violence perpetrated against them by institutions that are supposed to help them, they need some sort of recourse to deal with that. And I think sometimes boxing may be that. Now, I will say this. I will not be going to a mixed martial arts event. I don't want to see it. But I think that because people want to see it and people want to participate, I really don't believe that we have the right to keep that from them. They can go in other states to see it. They can turn the TV on and see it. And now that we are in a position where we can actually regulate how it's done, how to protect people, I think that we're in a better position in this state than most states who started out some years ago with this sort of legislation and did not really look out for the best interest of the folks who are going to compete. So I withdraw my request and vote in the affirmative.
Ms. Peoples-Stokes in the affirmative. Mr. Philip Steck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No one has lobbied me but Ron McAvilly, a local amateur trainer whose gym I wandered into one day when I was doing some door-to-door campaigning. I do not believe this is economic development, and I agree with much of the criticism of MMA as violent. However, you can see MMA on TV in your home or in bars all the time. We cannot say we are stopping anything by maintaining the ban on MMA. Amateur MMA was completely unregulated. Now amateur bouts must be sanctioned in the same way as amateur boxing. That is a huge improvement, and it will be helpful to have the safest competitions in the nation. While we need less violence, not more in this society, we glorify war in movies and on TV. No one is stopping that or even talking about it. And that, in my opinion, is far worse than what occurs in any sport, albeit a violent one. I withdraw my request and vote in the affirmative.
Mr. Philip Steck in the affirmative. Mr. Lupinacci.
I rise, Mr. Speaker, to explain my vote. And, my fourth year in the chamber, and I'm glad that as a member of the Tourism Committee, we're actually able to explain and vote on this bill in the Tourism Committee today. So I do thank Chairwoman Markey and also the ranking minority member, Mr. Murray, for all his support on this bill. And, when I go and speak to my students or the many classes that I go into, MMA is always a hot topic, whether I'm speaking to high school students or college students. And, when we look at the economic opportunity here, since we're the last state to actually, pass and legalize this, and we've thrown around the number of about $135 million in annual economic spending in the state by 2017, which is huge. And I know we were speaking about the differences today between boxing and MMA, and I know a few studies were tossed around by the majority leader and other members. And, just to mention another study, just to bring that into conversation, a study by the researchers at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine revealed that MMA produced a lower knockout rate than boxing. And this study looked at the data collected from the Nevada State Athletic Commission on injuries sustained in 171 professional MMA matches in Nevada between 2001 and 2004. But then there's also a humanistic point on this. And one of my cousins is a boxer. And one of the great prides that I have is I could watch him box at our local venue in Huntington called the Paramount. or I can go into the Barclay Center and watch him box. And Assemblyman Ra earlier mentioned Chris Weidman, who grew up in Baldwin, was a Nassau County person, and now I have the privilege of representing him because he lives in the 10th Assembly District. But just think of the pride that you can have when you could actually go and watch a family member or a fellow Long Islander or a fellow New Yorker actually, be able to fight in the state of New York. And I think that's, another level that we have to look at here. I thank also for all the regulations that are going to be put into effect. And as we continue to study the medical effects of concussions, we know that we can always go back and revise and amend and make sure that our current research stands up with our regulation. So, Mr. Speaker, I do withdraw my request, and I will be voting in the affirmative.
Mr. Lupinacci in the affirmative. Ms. Nolan to explain her vote.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleagues, I would like to just point out, as I ask the roll call be withdrawn for a moment and explain my vote, that I certainly judge no member here who votes yes, because we fight here. It's a combat, right? But I'm also not afraid to cast my vote in the negative, nor will I have it suggested that this is a sport when I can open up my dopey phone that I don't even know how to use and Google the word domestic violence, find from an HBO study that there's more domestic violence in this sport than in any other, including the NFL. So we have to be honest with each other as colleagues. For me, feel that that means that I vote no. It's too much for me. It's a line I will not cross. I vote no. There's too much domestic violence in this sport. I don't criticize any member here who feels differently. You may feel that it's manageable, that the regulations mean better sports, that all the other things are not as bad. You're entitled to that view. I'm entitled to lose on the vote. I vote no anyway. It doesn't bother me to lose a vote when I believe I'm doing the right thing. But please, colleagues, let's all have the respect for each other's positions, because each of us now is coming to our own conclusion in our little combatant and our little battle. And no matter what, we go back and we tell the people we represent, this is what we did and why we did it. I do not believe this is the last word on this bill or this sport, because I think we will be addressing issues of head trauma, domestic violence, and other problems for many, gambling as well, for many, many years to come. So I cast my vote in the negative. Thank you.
Ms. Nolan in the negative. Mr. Rivera to explain his vote.
Very quickly, Mr. Speaker. There are many people watching us, some back home and some on the balcony. We have some friends up there. One of them is Stanley and company. Listen, I just got another message, this one from my wife. She wants to know, after hearing Marcus, she said, who is getting money for supporting this? Who is getting money for supporting this? I'd like to know. Again, I'm going to repeat myself. 2 or 3 years ago, I went to Mr. Morelli, and I said, I'm concerned about this sports. I'm concerned. And it was not until my son, who I love, who my wife loved, who has 4 wonderful children, pulled me and invited me to his home and cooked a good dinner and said, Dad, do you see anything on my face? I said, why? Why you ask me that? It's because I am part of the sport. I do that once a month. I am part of a team that practices martial arts and kickboxing. It's all in the name of an art, and there's nothing to fear. And trust me, both my wife and I, we were afraid for our kid getting hurt. So it's not that anyone has approached me. I resent the use of scare, fear tactic here, implying that we're doing this, and I'm following my leader, this young man, when he spoke and I was in the lounge. And by the way, I videotaped it in the lounge, I put it on Facebook. So we're all being watched one way or another. I resent the tactic of putting fear. I resent to smear and slander and demonizing any one of us simply because we're about to vote yes. I do it because my son convinced me he is not in danger. Not because anyone.
Mr. Rivera, how do you vote?
Not because of anyone reaching out to me.
Mr. Rivera, how do you vote?
I thank you for your patience. I am voting yes.
Mr. Rivera, Mr. Rivera in the affirmative. Mr. McLaughlin.
Always fun to follow Mr. Rivera. Mr. Speaker, to explain my vote, I want to just take a moment and congratulate Majority Leader Morelli and Speaker Hasty for getting this bill to the floor. This was a good back and forth debate. I don't like to see athletes of any sport denigrated, and that seemed to happen quite a bit here. And I think that the athletes of MMA, by and large, are overwhelmingly good people, just like most people in every other sport and every other walk of life. But I do want to congratulate the vigorous debate that we had. And I also want to take a moment. Up in the stands is some folks from MMA, but also locally here, one of my constituents, Ron McEvely, is up there in the top. Ron stood here last year and watched the debate, watched the chance for MMA fall apart. He was here day after day after day. Ron is an Air Force veteran. He is an MMA instructor. He had his own MMA academy, and he is all about safety and all about training kids in the martial arts and the discipline that entails. And he has seen great results in turning kids' lives around. So I want to congratulate Ron for sticking with it all this time. This is a great day for him. He deserves to be here to witness this history because he has held in there for a long time. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. I withdraw my request and vote in the affirmative.
Mr. McLaughlin in the affirmative. Mr. Palamisano.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, as someone who has lost a lot of votes in this chamber, I'm happy to win one. I vote yes.
Mr. Palamisano in the affirmative. Are there Mr. Goldfeder to explain your vote?
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the great Daniel Patrick Moynihan once said, you're entitled to your own opinion, but not entitled to your own facts. The bottom line is, because you read it on the internet or you see some study or you see some correlation, does not make it true. The fact is that this sport is giving discipline and order to our kids. It's teaching our kids and teaching our community the best way to act and the best way to carry yourself. And quite frankly, for every study you find on the internet one way, you'll find 5 the other. I think this is a great bill. I think it took too long to get to the floor, and I'm very excited about its passage today, and I am voting in the affirmative.
Mr. Goldfeder in the affirmative. Ms. Markey to explain her vote.
Thank you. I have a little bit of a problem with this particular piece of legislation. I have 3 children. They're all adults. One is a police officer, one is a firefighter, and one is a teacher. And I asked my sons, the firefighter and the police officer, how they felt about this bill, about mixed martial arts. And they looked at me and they said, "Ma, oh no, I'm not into that." They're not wimps. These kids are, as I said, police and firefighters. I really have a difficult decision on this because I know people are severely injured by this, by mixed martial arts. There's brain injuries, there's physical injuries, and it's really very painful for me to have to vote. It came out of my committee, and I really have a difficult time. I think as an institution, I think our obligation is really to protect the people of this state. And I don't care that we're the last state to pass this. There are people who own the major stadiums in our state. They're going to be making lots of money. Okay? I'm not. I don't want their money. But it really is a moral decision on my part as far as this piece of legislation goes. So, I don't know. I'll go XYZ and press a button. But it is a difficult decision for me. And I will vote, Jeff. I promise. I'm going to sit
You will
down.
vote.
I'm going to sit down and
We'll
vote
hold you
right
to that,
now.
Ms. Markey. Are there any other votes? Announce the results.
Ayes 113, noes 25.
The bill has passed. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Do we have any resolutions to take up at this time?
Number of fine resolutions. We'll take them up in one vote. All those in favor of the resolutions, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolutions are adopted. Mr. Morelli?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Would you please recognize Ms. Schimmel for an announcement?
Ms. Schimmel, for the purposes of an announcement.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the moment we have all been waiting for, there will be a majority conference in the Speaker's conference room following the close of session.
Majority conference, Speaker's conference room.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would you please call on Mr. Crouch for an announcement?
Mr. Crouch, for the purposes of announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There will be an immediate Republican conference in the parlor.
Republican conference in the parlor. Mr. Morelli?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I now move that the Assembly stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Wednesday, March 23rd, tomorrow being a session day.
The Assembly stands adjourned.